Anxiety doesn't ask permission. It storms in. You could be sitting in peace, doing nothing wrong, and suddenly your heartbeat turns into a war drum. Your mind starts sprinting. Your chest locks up like a cage. And the cruel part, nothing's even happening. The world outside looks calm, but inside, it's chaos. That's the first truth you must face. Anxiety isn't logical. It's primal. It's your mind confusing noise for danger. But you've been trained to hide it, to smile, to function, to pretend you're fine while you suffocate quietly. The Stoics called this the tyranny of false perception. When your mind becomes the enemy because it believes every storm it imagines. You're not weak for feeling this. You're simply untrained in the art of internal control. But that ends now. From this moment on, you're going to learn how to reclaim command over your nervous system, the way warriors once learned to command their swords, with discipline, awareness, and relentless calm. Because peace isn't found, it's conquered. Most people spend their lives fighting shadows, avoiding what scares them, escaping the discomfort, drowning it in noise, food, work, or screens. But the Stoics taught the opposite. If you run from fear, it becomes your ruler. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That means anxiety isn't an external invader. It's an internal misunderstanding, your body reacting to stories your mind hasn't yet questioned. Every time you say, "I can't handle this," you feed the fear. Every time you avoid silence, you confirm it controls you. The first command is to face it head on. When the panic rises, don't flee. Observe. Watch it without judgment. Say to yourself, "This is just energy. It will pass." The Stoics practice this daily, seeing emotions as temporary weather, not permanent identity. You're not broken, you're misdirected. Fear can't survive in awareness. The moment you look at it calmly, it starts losing its claws. So when anxiety comes, don't fight, don't freeze. Face it, name it, watch it shrink. That's how the rebellion begins, by refusing to run from what's inside you. Anxiety is not the pounding heart or the shaking hands. Those are echoes. The real battle happens in the story your mind tells about what's happening. The Stoics knew that suffering comes not from events, but from our interpretations of them. Your brain invents danger from thin air, a look, a silence, a message left unread, and suddenly you're rehearsing disaster. That's not intuition, that's imagination gone rogue. You cannot fight anxiety on the level of sensation. You must fight it on the level of story. When fear hits, stop and ask, what am I telling myself right now? Usually, it's a script that begins with "what if" and ends in catastrophe. But reality hasn't moved an inch, only your thoughts have. Replace the story. Say, "This is uncomfortable, not dangerous. This is uncertainty, not doom." That's what Stoic mastery is, not denying emotion, but rewriting perception until it obeys reason. Your mind is a narrator. Make it tell the truth. When you own the story, the symptom fades because the body follows the mind, and the mind follows the story it believes. Your peace collapses the moment your attention does. Anxiety thrives on scattered focus, on a mind that runs from one worry to another like a candle in the wind. That's why the Stoics trained concentration as if it were a weapon. They called it prohairesis, the disciplined faculty of choice. When your focus is weak, everything feels threatening, but when it's strong, even chaos bends around you. So here's the rule. Guard your attention like it's sacred territory. Stop letting every notification, every stray thought, every opinion break into your mental home. You decide what enters. Every time you bring your awareness back to this moment, to your breath, your task, your purpose, you rebuild the fortress. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire in crisis, yet he reminded himself, nowhere you can go is more peaceful than within your own soul. That's not poetry, it's training. Each time your thoughts spiral, don't chase them. Return to one clear action. Write, breathe, move, focus. The anxious mind says, "What if?" The disciplined mind says, "What now?" Focus is how you pull yourself from imagination back into reality. And reality is never as terrifying as your thoughts. Anxiety feeds on control, or rather, the illusion of it. You spend hours worrying about what people think, what might happen tomorrow, what already happened yesterday. But none of that belongs to you. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. Some things are within your power, and some are not. Anxiety is born when you try to dominate what isn't yours, other people's opinions, outcomes, timing, fate. Epictetus said, Freedom is achieved by disregarding the things that lie beyond our control. In other words, peace begins where false responsibility ends. Let go. You can't stop the storm, but you can master your sails. You can't decide who stays, but you can decide how you stand. Every moment you waste trying to fix the uncontrollable is energy stolen from what you can shape. Your mindset, your response, your integrity. That's the real arena. You don't conquer anxiety by bending life to your will. You conquer it by surrendering everything that was never yours to hold. Breathe and say to yourself, I control my effort, not the outcome. That's not giving up, that's liberation. The one who releases control becomes untouchable. The modern world worships noise, constant motion, endless updates. Every second you're told to react, reply, respond. But silence, true, unchosen silence has become rebellion. The Stoics understood that without stillness, the mind fractures. Seneca said, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. Your anxiety thrives because your attention is scattered across too many worlds. You wake up and your mind is already sprinting before your feet even touch the floor. So here's the fifth command. Create stillness. Even while moving, it's not about running away to mountains or hiding from responsibility. It's about cultivating a quiet center that you can return to anywhere, anytime. When life rushes, slow your breath. When people shout, lower your tone. When the mind races, answer it with awareness. I see you, but I am still here. That simple act separates you from the storm. Build small rituals that anchor you. A morning breath before the world begins. A pause between tasks. A silent reflection before sleep. These are not luxuries. They are survival. Stillness is not idleness. It's control. It's the invisible pause that turns chaos into clarity. You've been taught to fear pain, to see it as the enemy, something to numb, fix, or flee. But the Stoics saw pain as the raw material of greatness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Your anxiety, your heartbreak, your losses, they're not curses. They're fuel. Pain only destroys when you refuse to learn from it. Every moment of discomfort is a message. Grow here. When your heart races, it's not a punishment. It's your body asking for attention, not avoidance. When your plans collapse, that's not failure. It's exposure of weakness that wants strength. The Stoic doesn't seek comfort. He seeks capacity. He asks, how can I use this? Instead of why me, he says, try me. Transformation begins when you stop demanding that life be easy and start demanding that you be strong. So, the next time anxiety hits, don't curse it. Study it. Train inside it. Let it sharpen you. Because the strongest steel is forged in fire, not in peace. Your pain is not proof of weakness. It's the birthplace of mastery. Anxiety lives in two places that don't exist, the past and the future. The past traps you in regret. The future enslaves you to fear. But reality, the only thing that can't hurt you, lives right here, in this breath, this moment, this heartbeat. That's why the Stoics made presence their strongest weapon. They knew the mind's favorite trick is to drag you out of now, to replay mistakes or predict disasters. But here's the truth. No one ever drowned in the present moment. You only drown in the waves your mind imagines. So, when the noise rises, anchor yourself. Feel your feet on the ground. Name 5 things you see. Breathe in slowly. Then breathe out even slower. Whisper to yourself, I am here. You'll notice something strange. The fear starts to fade because it can't survive reality. The mind creates monsters. The present moment dissolves them. That's not mysticism. That's physiology. Presence pulls your body out of fight or flight and into calm awareness. Every Stoic knew this. The man who lives in the present cannot be conquered. The more you return to now, the less anxiety owns you. This is where the rebellion truly starts. The moment you stop reacting to everything that tries to own your attention. Modern life is a battlefield of impulses. Messages, headlines, notifications, noise. Every ping demands your mind. Every scroll drains your discipline. And without realizing it, you've become what the Stoics warned against, a slave to externals. But rebellion doesn't mean escaping the world. It means mastering your stance within it. You start reclaiming power the second you stop giving automatic reactions. Someone insults you. Pause. A plan fails. Breathe. Fear rises. Observe. That pause is your revolution. Every moment you choose response over reaction. Clarity over chaos. You weaken anxiety's hold. The Stoics train this like warriors. Anticipation without panic. Awareness without attachment. You can't control the world, but you can refuse to be owned by it. That's the Stoic rebellion. Not rage against the system, but dominion over the self. The one who controls his reactions controls his world. The rest are just noisemakers, loud but powerless. Power isn't found in shouting louder than your fears. It's found in commanding yourself when everything inside screams to break. The Stoics called this discipline of the ruling faculty, the ability to govern your own impulses, no matter what chaos surrounds you. Think of your mind as a general and your emotions as soldiers. When you panic, the troops run wild. When you command, they fall into order. That's what true self-control is. Internal authority. Every anxious thought is an invitation to take back command. But command requires training. You don't build it in comfort, you build it in conflict. Each time you resist overthinking, delay reaction, or stay calm in discomfort, you train your nervous system to obey you, not the storm. That's how you turn panic into presence, Seneca said. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. So, when the tremor hits, don't retreat. Stand tall, issue orders to your mind. We will breathe. We will observe. We will endure. This is not motivation. This is mental warfare. Calm is not a gift. It's discipline forged under fire. The heaviest burden you carry isn't your past, your job, or your circumstances. It's your perception. Two people can face the same storm, and one crumbles while the other stands tall. The difference isn't luck, it's lens. The Stoics understood that the world doesn't break you. Your interpretation of it does. Marcus Aurelius said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Your mind is a lens, and most people never clean theirs. It's clouded by fear, comparison, resentment. Every anxious thought adds another layer of distortion until everything looks threatening. The discipline of Stoicism begins with polishing that lens daily through awareness, reason, and self-examination. When something triggers you, stop and ask, is this event really unbearable? Or have I labeled it that way? The moment you change your perception, you change the weight of the world. Life won't get lighter. You will get stronger. And soon you realize, anxiety never came from life itself. It came from the story you told about it. Most people live like comfort is safety, but the Stoics knew it's a trap. The more you chase comfort, the weaker you become. Every soft habit, every avoided challenge, every easy escape, it trains your mind to panic when life gets hard. That's why the Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, deliberately choosing small hardships to build inner armor. Cold water, fasting, silence, simplicity. They weren't punishing themselves, they were preparing themselves. Because comfort breeds fragility, and discomfort breeds freedom. When you expose yourself to controlled stress, anxiety loses its mystery. You've already met discomfort on your terms. The Stoics understood this. If you can endure voluntarily, you won't collapse involuntarily. So do something hard every day, not for the result, but for the resilience. Sit in silence when you crave distraction. Delay gratification when your mind screams for dopamine. Walk in the cold without flinching. These moments train your nervous system to stop interpreting every discomfort as danger. Fear fades when the familiar grows larger than the unknown. You become the type of person chaos can't scare, because you've already shaken hands with it. You suffer most when you cling to expectations, to people, to outcomes that were never promised. The Stoics compared attachment to being chained to a wild horse. Every time life jerks, you get dragged through the dirt. Anxiety is the friction between how things are and how you wish they were. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It means you no longer hand your peace to things that can change without warning. Epictetus said, when something happens, the only thing in your power is your attitude toward it. Detach from results. Focus on effort. Detach from opinions. Focus on character. Detach from control. Focus on composure. The less you grip, the freer you move. Most people's anxiety isn't about reality, it's about resistance. They want life to follow a script it never agreed to. But when you let go, when you stop wrestling the river, you discover something miraculous. It carries you anyway. That's not surrender, that's mastery. Detachment isn't giving up. It's standing in stillness while everything else moves, knowing that what's meant for you will find its way without your panic. Anxiety thrives in uncertainty, and most people never prepare their minds for what's coming. The Stoics did the opposite. They practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Every morning, they imagined obstacles, losses, betrayal, even death, not to suffer early, but to suffer wisely. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself before each day, "Today you will meet ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful men." He expected chaos. So when it arrived, he wasn't surprised, he was steady. Preparation is not pessimism, it's self-defense. When you mentally rehearse adversity, you remove its power to shock you. You begin to understand life owes you nothing, but you owe yourself readiness. Modern anxiety often comes from being mentally unarmed in a world that changes too fast. So, train your mind before the storm. Expect difficulty. Plan for pressure. Visualize challenge without panic. This rewires your brain from fear to familiarity. When trouble arrives, you'll nod and say, I knew you'd come." That's the mindset of a warrior, not a worrier. The unprepared react, the prepared respond. And in that difference lies freedom. The Stoics didn't use the word nervous system, but they mastered it better than most modern people. They knew that the body mirrors the mind, and the breath is the bridge between them. When panic rises, your breathing shortens, your heart follows, your thoughts spiral, and you call it anxiety. But the truth is, your body is just waiting for you to take command. Inhale, hold, exhale slowly. That's not just calming, that's authority. Each breath says, "I decide what pace my body follows." Seneca wrote that the wise man lives in harmony with himself. Breath is how you return to that harmony. You can't outthink anxiety while your physiology screams survival. You must first silence the body to free the mind. Practice deliberate breathing like a Stoic meditation, not as a quick fix, but as daily discipline. Breathe deeply before you speak, before you react, before you decide. The breath becomes your sword and shield. It cuts through chaos and defends your peace. Every deep breath is a declaration of control, a reminder that while the world races, you remain the still point inside it. You scroll, you watch, you measure. Everyone's life looks cleaner, faster, happier than yours. And each image steals a little piece of your peace. The Stoics would have called this madness, seeking validation from strangers while neglecting your own soul. Comparison is the silent killer of contentment. It trains your brain to chase worth instead of build it. Epictetus warned, when you desire things not under your control, you become a slave. And that's what social comparison is. Slavery disguised as inspiration. You cannot live freely while your value depends on external approval. Every time you compare, you abandon your lane and wander into illusion. The Stoic path demands focus on your own progress, not theirs. Ask yourself daily, am I better than I was yesterday? That's all. No scoreboard, no applause. No envy, because envy and anxiety share the same parent, disconnection from the present self. The cure is radical independence, to walk your path so fully that other people's noise becomes irrelevant. When you stop comparing, you stop competing, and finally start becoming. Anxiety often disguises itself as ambition. You keep chasing more money, more recognition, more validation, believing peace is just one achievement away. But the Stoics saw through this illusion. They knew that desire without discipline becomes slavery. Seneca warned, no person is poor who can limit their wants. The modern world sells you the opposite, that happiness lives in accumulation. But every new possession is a new chain, every new craving a new master. The discipline of enough is the art of sufficiency, to recognize that what you have, right now, is already enough for peace. This doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means refusing to let ambition consume you. When you stop living in the future, you start living in truth. Count your blessings until gratitude drowns greed. Look around, the air, the light, your breath, your mind, all free, all priceless. You don't need everything. You just need clarity about what actually matters. The anxious mind says, I'll rest when I have more. The Stoic mind says, I have enough to begin. Peace isn't earned, it's allowed. Most people fear being alone because silence exposes what distraction hides. When the noise stops, their thoughts echo, loud, sharp, uncomfortable. But the Stoics saw solitude as sacred training, not isolation. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire surrounded by noise and still wrote, nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Solitude is where you return to yourself, where you separate who you are from who the world told you to be. Anxiety often comes from overstimulation, too many voices, opinions, comparisons. Solitude cuts the signal and restores the source. When you sit alone without reaching for a screen, you begin to meet your real self, the one who doesn't need an audience to feel worthy. Practice solitude deliberately. A morning walk without music, 10 minutes of silence before sunrise, an hour at night with only your thoughts. At first, it feels empty, then it becomes powerful. Because in solitude, you remember something the world makes you forget. Peace doesn't come from company, it comes from clarity. When you master solitude, you'll never fear loneliness again. Every second, life throws something at you. An insult, a delay, a disappointment. Most people react instantly, emotionally, and regretfully, but the Stoic doesn't. The Stoic responds. Reaction is reflex, response is mastery. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's not philosophy, that's survival. Anxiety feeds on your reflexes, on your habit of letting every emotion pull the trigger. The discipline of response is learning to pause before you explode, to breathe before you decide, to think before you surrender control. That pause is your shield. Inside it, you turn chaos into clarity. The Stoics called this the interval, the space between stimulus and action. Train yourself to expand it. When anger rises, don't suppress it, observe it. When fear hits, don't obey it, question it. The moment you choose response over reaction, you rewrite your nervous system. You're no longer a puppet of emotions, you're the commander of them. That's the real victory. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of control. The first hour of your day determines the strength of your mind. The Stoics knew this. That victory begins before sunrise, while most people wake up and instantly surrender to noise. Marcus Aurelius began his mornings by reminding himself of his duty. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive. He understood something modern people forget. The mind, like a sword, dulls without ritual. A Stoic morning isn't about routines for productivity. It's about reclaiming command before the world interferes. The ritual is simple but sacred. Wake early, breathe deeply, move your body, reflect in silence. Write down one truth that will guide your actions today. Ask, what would a wise person do with this day? That question sets your compass. Before you look at a screen, look inward. Before you check your phone, check your thoughts. The morning is your mental battlefield. Win it, and the day obeys. Lose it, and anxiety leads. Every sunrise is an invitation to start from strength, not fear. Don't just wake up, rise. The Stoics ended each day the same way they began it, with awareness. Seneca wrote, "Each night, I examine my entire day and measure my actions." Reflection wasn't guilt, it was growth. Modern people run from reflection because silence exposes truth, and truth demands change. But if you don't review your day, you repeat your mistakes. The Stoic nightly practice is ruthless honesty without self-hatred. Sit alone in silence. Ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do well? What did I do poorly? What will I do differently tomorrow? No excuses, no judgment, just observation. This ritual reprograms your mind to live deliberately. Anxiety thrives on chaos and ignorance. Reflection brings order and understanding. Every night you self-examine, you remove another layer of blindness. You become conscious of your patterns, your triggers, your lapses, your strengths. Awareness is the first step to freedom. The goal isn't perfection, it's precision, the steady sharpening of character. When you live each day examined, you stop fearing the next. The unexamined mind reacts. The examined mind commands. The anxious mind lives anywhere but here. It mourns the past and fears the future, forgetting that the only thing it ever truly owns is the present. The Stoics treated time as sacred currency, not something to be wasted or worried over. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Every moment lost to overthinking is a moment stolen from living." Anxiety convinces you that control exists somewhere in tomorrow, but it never does. Tomorrow is an illusion. Yesterday is a shadow, and now is your only weapon. The Stoic trains himself to value time like breath, both finite, both priceless. When you realize this, you stop giving your minutes to meaningless things. You stop chasing, start choosing. The greatest discipline isn't managing tasks, it's managing attention. Live each day as if your soul were being judged by how you spent your time. Because in truth, it is, when you guard your time, you guard your peace. Time is your battlefield, and awareness is how you win it. Expectation is the invisible chain that keeps even strong minds enslaved. You expect people to act right, plans to succeed, timing to favor you. And when life doesn't obey, anxiety takes command. The Stoics broke that chain by expecting nothing but their own effort. Epictetus said, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings." Translation: you suffer less when you stop demanding that reality be perfect. Expectation is a form of entitlement, the belief that life owes you smoothness. It doesn't. Life owes you struggle, growth, impermanence. When you accept this, disappointment loses its sting. You no longer break when things go wrong because you never expected them to go right. You just expected yourself to endure. The Stoic learns to replace expectation with execution, to wake up each day not asking, "Will this go my way?" but saying, "Whatever comes, I'll meet it with strength." When you stop expecting, you start experiencing. You see life clearly, without distortion. That's not pessimism, that's freedom. Emotions spread faster than truth. Walk into a room filled with panic, and your heart races. Scroll through anger online, and your own mood collapses. The Stoics understood this danger long before social media. They called it emotional contagion. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The mind becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you constantly absorb the fears, rages, and anxieties of others, your peace will rot from within. The modern world rewards outrage. But the Stoic builds armor, not of apathy, but of awareness. You can feel others' energy without becoming it. That's the shield. When the crowd panics, you breathe. When others gossip, you stay silent. When the world screams, you observe. Guard your input with the same intensity you guard your time. Because whatever you let in, you become. The Stoic filters every influence. What he reads, who he listens to, where he spends his attention. He knows that peace is not a gift, it's a boundary. The anxious absorb everything. The Stoic selects, you can't control the noise of the world, but you can refuse to echo it. The Stoics didn't have therapists, they had journals. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations wasn't written for publication, it was written for survival. Every page was a battlefield where he wrestled with his own thoughts and returned to clarity. Writing forces the mind to slow down, to translate chaos into order. Anxiety thrives in vagueness. Journaling kills vagueness. When you write, you expose the lie beneath the feeling. What am I really afraid of? What story am I repeating? What can I control right now? The page doesn't judge, it mirrors. Seneca called writing a rehearsal for wisdom. He knew that every reflection on paper strengthens reason's grip over emotion. Make journaling your daily purification. Morning for direction, night for evaluation. It doesn't need to be poetic, it needs to be honest. Write until your racing thoughts lose their momentum. Write until fear becomes logic. Each sentence is a brick in the fortress of your mind. The world teaches you to broadcast your life. The Stoic teaches you to understand it. Your journal isn't a diary, it's your training ground for mental mastery. Fear is not your enemy, it's your teacher. The Stoics didn't aim to erase fear, they aimed to interpret it. Fear is simply information, energy without direction. It shows you what you value and where you're unprepared. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is endurable, then endure it." Stop complaining. The Stoic doesn't waste energy wishing fear away. He studies it. He asks, what exactly am I afraid of? When you define fear clearly, it starts to dissolve, because the mind can't stay terrified of what it understands. Fear feeds on vagueness, on forward. When you drag it into the light of reason, it becomes manageable. Every fear is a test of perception. Is this real or imagined? Most of what you fear is not pain itself, but the anticipation of it, the movie in your mind. The Stoics knew that facing fear in thought weakens its hold in life. Fear doesn't disappear, it becomes fuel. It sharpens awareness, strengthens courage, builds discipline. The anxious man runs from fear. The Stoic walks toward it with calm eyes and says, "Show me what I must master." Control is one of humanity's oldest illusions. You think you can shape outcomes? Direct people, command time. But life laughs at such arrogance. The Stoics divided existence into two categories: what depends on you and what doesn't. Everything outside your direct will, weather, politics, relationships, fate, belongs to nature. Everything within, your thoughts, choices, and virtues, belongs to you. Anxiety thrives when you try to rule both kingdoms. The Stoic strength lies in surrender, not as weakness, but as precision. He refuses to waste effort on the uncontrollable and pours everything into what he governs completely, his own reason. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." That's not passivity, that's mastery. When you surrender what you can't control, you don't lose power, you reclaim it. You stop bleeding energy into things that were never yours to fix. The world may still shake, but you stop shaking with it. Surrender is the highest form of control. It's ruling yourself so completely that chaos becomes irrelevant. Anxiety often hides beneath one ultimate fear, the fear of loss. Losing control, losing people, losing time, losing life. The Stoics met that fear head on. They practiced memento mori, remember, you will die. Not as morbid obsession, but as liberation. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do. Say and think. Death awareness shrinks anxiety because it shrinks illusion. When you remember how temporary everything is, you stop panicking over what doesn't matter. You stop wasting today fearing tomorrow. Impermanence isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Every breath, every conversation, every sunrise becomes sacred when you know it won't last forever. The Stoic sees mortality as the final teacher of discipline. To act now, speak truth now, love deeply now. Anxiety says, what if it ends? Wisdom answers, of course it will. That's why it matters. When you make peace with impermanence, you can't be shaken by it. You don't cling, you don't delay. You live fully because you finally understand. Everything borrowed must be lived, not feared. Freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from mastering what you want. The Stoics called this sophrosyne, temperance, self-restraint, the quiet strength to say no when impulse screams yes. Modern anxiety often comes from overstimulation, too much pleasure, too much choice, too little control. You scroll, you snack, you react, and each indulgence chips away at your inner authority. The Stoic doesn't deny pleasure, he disciplines it. He eats to nourish, speaks to add value, rests to recover, never to escape. Seneca warned, no man is free who is a slave to his body. Self-restraint is how you reclaim your freedom. Every time you resist an urge, you sharpen your will. Every delay of gratification builds inner calm, because power without discipline is chaos, and desire without boundaries is prison. When you train restraint, you stop being dragged by appetite and start directing it toward purpose. The Stoic lives by one rule: I control my choices, not my cravings. True peace isn't found in satisfying every urge. It's found in mastering the few that matter. Gratitude isn't a soft virtue, it's a mental weapon. Anxiety thrives on what's missing. Gratitude redirects your focus to what's present. The Stoics practice gratitude not as sentiment, but as strategy. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily reminders of everything he already possessed: reason, air, dawn, the chance to act with integrity. He understood that when you count blessings, you strip power from fear. Seneca said, he who is not satisfied with a little is satisfied with nothing. The modern mind constantly scans for problems. The Stoic trains his mind to scan for strength. Gratitude breaks the pattern of scarcity by exposing abundance. Every anxious thought says, something is wrong. Gratitude answers, so much is right. It's not denial, it's redirection. Start each morning with 3 acknowledgments: one for what you have, one for what you've endured, one for what you can still become. This isn't spiritual fluff, it's psychological armor. Gratitude stabilizes the nervous system, reframes perception, and brings instant clarity. When you live in appreciation, life stops feeling like war and starts feeling like a gift you're strong enough to handle. Integrity is the backbone of peace. You can't live calmly if your actions betray your own principles. The Stoics believe that anxiety often comes from inner conflict, when what you do, say, and value no longer align. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Simple words. Brutal standard. Most modern suffering isn't random. It's self-inflicted through compromise. Every time you lie, you fracture your own mind. Every time you act against your values, your spirit revolts. Integrity is not about perfection. It's about alignment. Living so honestly that your conscience no longer whispers at night. When your inner and outer worlds match, peace follows automatically. The Stoic doesn't need applause or validation. His strength comes from knowing he stood by what's right. Even unseen, anxiety loses its fuel when you stop performing and start embodying. Speak less, do better. Stay consistent. You don't need the world to understand you, only your soul to approve of you. Integrity is the quiet power that makes the mind unshakable. Anxiety multiplies in aimless lives. When you don't know what you're living for, everything feels urgent, everything feels threatening. The Stoics cured that emptiness with purpose. They live by a single principle: align your actions with virtue. Marcus Aurelius ruled, fought, wrote, and endured not for pleasure, but for duty, the pursuit of wisdom, justice, courage, and self-control. Purpose turns suffering into service. It gives pain a place to go. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. That's the blueprint. Decide who you are, then act like it, consistently, relentlessly, without permission. Modern chaos comes from living reactively. Stoic peace comes from living intentionally. Purpose simplifies life. You stop chasing distractions because they no longer fit your mission. You stop fearing judgment because you know your direction. The Stoic wakes up each day with one question: does this action serve my character? If yes, he proceeds. If not, he stops. A man with purpose doesn't escape anxiety. He outgrows it, because his mind is too focused on meaning to drown in fear. Emotional detachment isn't indifference, it's intelligence. It's the ability to feel deeply without being destroyed by what you feel. The Stoics didn't repress emotion, they refined it. They knew that uncontrolled emotion clouds judgment, and judgment is the seat of power. Epictetus warned, when something happens, remember it happened to you as a man, not as a helpless victim. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop collapsing. You watch the emotion rise, anger, sadness, jealousy, and instead of obeying, you observe. You remind yourself, this is not me, this is a signal. The Stoic separates stimulus from self. He doesn't let a temporary feeling make a permanent decision. In a world that glorifies overreaction, emotional detachment becomes a rare form of strength. It's what allows you to respond with precision instead of panic. The anxious are tossed around by their moods. The Stoic stands firm amid them. Detachment is not about coldness, it's about clarity. You control your emotions not by fighting them, but by understanding them. You feel everything, yet remain unshaken. Adversity isn't punishment, it's preparation. The Stoics believed that hardship was the forge of the soul, the place where comfort ends and character begins. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, and plague. Yet he wrote, the fire feeds on what is thrown into it. Every trial is material for mastery. Modern minds run from difficulty, chasing ease. But the Stoic runs toward resistance, knowing that pain reveals potential. Anxiety wants comfort, wisdom wants strength. Each setback you endure without breaking adds a layer to your inner armor. The world may take your plans, but it can't take your discipline. The more you face, the less you fear. Seneca said, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. That's not metaphor, it's law. Without adversity, you remain fragile. With it, you become unshakable. So, when the next challenge comes, don't curse it, command it. Ask, what skill, what virtue, what resilience is this trying to build in me? Pain isn't the enemy, it's the sculptor. And every Stoic knows, it's through pressure that the marble becomes a statue. This is where the journey ends and begins again. Freedom was never about escaping the world. It was about mastering the one within. The Stoics called it ataraxia, an unshakable calm, untouched by fortune or fear. You faced the storm, studied your mind, disciplined your habits, and reclaimed your attention. Now understand this final truth. Peace is not given. It's earned through awareness, restraint, and relentless alignment with reason. Marcus Aurelius ruled nations, yet his greatest empire was his own mind. Epictetus was born a slave, yet his spirit remained unconquered. You become free the moment you stop letting emotions, people, or outcomes dictate your state. Nothing outside can chain you if nothing inside obeys. That's the Stoic victory, sovereignty over the self. Anxiety cannot dominate a mind trained in truth. So when the noise rises, when life shakes again, return to the principles you've built: perception, discipline, detachment, purpose, and courage. Breathe, stand tall, act with virtue. You are no longer the storm-tossed. You are the calm that commands it. Freedom is not found, it's forged. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you is done living as a prisoner of your own thoughts. You've listened, you've reflected, now it's time to act. The Stoics taught that wisdom without practice is nothing. Don't just agree with these words, apply them. Choose one principle from today: stillness, focus, detachment, courage, and live it for the next 7 days. Watch how your mind begins to obey you instead of the world. Change doesn't come from motivation. It comes from discipline, repeated until it becomes identity. You don't need the world to calm down. You need to rise up. So start today. Take back your peace, rebuild your mind, and remind yourself every morning, I am the master of my thoughts, not their victim. Leave your comments below. Tell me which Stoic law or truth hit you the hardest, and how you're going to use it starting now. Thanks for listening. YouTube channel, Stoic Psychology.